Hello, everybody. Sending out positive salutations on a Thursday evening from Ohio. Um, I'm very excited this evening about this evening's podcast. As a matter of fact, I was speaking with Marcia before we logged into the studio and kind of mentioned about this being like a newly resurging topic, which, this is something she's studied for many, many years. Hey, Phoenix, how are you doing? Um, she studied for many, many years, and this is a subject that some of us are just now learning about or are relearning about. And just the more I've studied and looked into her artwork, and then those who have supported her artwork over the years, I've became even more aware of how little that I know, even though I did think I knew about this subject. And I think all of us will probably come away from this maybe scratching our heads and thinking about the reality of what we've been told for the narrative as far as human history and life and the reality of ourselves, and even civilizations and the history of civilizations altogether. There's so many false narratives that we've been given for whatever the agenda or the reason that we've been given these false narratives. They're out there. Even at times, I think there's, even if there's been at times that maybe there's been a little bit of information that's been put out there for us, it's been washed away, or it's been dismissed by various excuses. Hi, Kathy. Or it's been dismissed by various excuses, like trying to explain it's being this or explain it's being that, then even what we learn and somehow resonates with us inside of ourselves, we end up turning around and kind of dismissing it, and it ends up getting stamped with what I often say I dislike very much, with that stamp of pseudoscience. This evening, we're going to have Marcia K. Moore, and she's from CMR Studios. And for those that are unaware, Marcia is one, I just actually said history eminent, not just world eminent. She is one of the, she's made a mark, I think, that's going to leave a mark on humanity for all time. Not just for now, I think for all time. And I'm really hoping that at some point that my descendants or my nieces and nephews or whatever, someday when they're sitting in their geography and history classes and humanities, whatever, that they open up books and they see her sculptures and her illustrations that explain more of the true narrative of humanity than what, like I said, what we've been told. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and have our producers pull Marcia up, and I'm going to have her explain some of her stuff that she does. She's a sculptor. She's got a beautiful painting behind her right now. She's a sculptor, illustrator. I've seen she draws. It's just Jim Stevens actually is who introduced me to her work, and I started going through it, and I was looking at it, and each picture, as big as I could get it to blow up. Or I was looking at your pictures, like you're probably like sitting at home, like you don't even know, all of us over here just going through all of your artwork, and I was enlarging it. I was just flabbergasted. I mean, each picture made me need to go look at the next picture. And the sculptures, your work was so great. I thank you for coming and joining me. Actually, I'm very humbled by having you here.
Oh, well, I'm very honored. You honor me actually with describing the work as you have. So if it's resonated, it's a good thing. That's what it's here for.
I do. I fully agree with it. And I think even with the newer the upcoming generations, their minds aren't as, I don't know if I want to say programmed or, on that path as what, say, like we were when we were growing up. I mean, it was kind of like, each year we had the little classes where we broke out the TV guide and, we made our little pilgrims and, then we made our little pictures of Columbus coming over here and having, Thanksgiving dinner with the pilgrims and all, we've been taught so much, but I think with, just with everything that kids are exposed to these days and young adults, whether it be a video game or it be a movie or anime or the cards that they play with, everything, their minds are so much more open. And I think there's a lot more reality that's put into it. And with those different media, I think that they have more of a relationship with art too than what a lot of us had. So I really think that at some point, I'm really hoping that all that's just going to start connecting, and they're learning about chakras and energies and stuff. We didn't learn about that in school. We learned, sing your ABCs and brush your teeth and wash your hands and, things like that. We really didn't learn about lining up your chakras. We learned the food pyramid, which isn't necessarily, I guess, correct.
Yeah.
What inspired you? I've been wanting to ask this for a while. What inspired you out of all of your artistic abilities? And you are incredibly capable of doing whatever it is that you would have chosen. If you had chosen to do whatever, wild horses, or if you had chosen to do, whatever it is that you had chosen to be your subject matter, what has steered you in the direction that it has to make and produce the art that you've done?
Well, when I came to this planet, I from a young girl felt very rooted. I felt very rooted to where I lived, and I would say that what you just described with the young people that are coming in. I think we came in with more of a vibration of frequency of that connection. We might have lost it due to some conditioning, of course, but we came in rooted to the planet. And I think the kids today have come in, their DNA has come in more open to the technology that we're receiving right now. And I see maybe not so much the balance of being rooted to the planet. So I came in being very rooted to the planet. And I asked my dad early on, I asked him the W's all the time. I was like, who are we? And where do we come from? Why are we here? And, for the most part, he just didn't really know how to answer those questions. He didn't, who am I? You're American. That was his answer. Where are we from? How far does this go back? He didn't really know how to answer that because, I think here in North America, most Europeans that have come over, we're just, we're a little bit of everything and nothing at the same time. So we don't have a strong foundation. So I decided, since I'm here in North America, I'm going to just really root to where I am. And that meant that, well, who was here? Who's been here in North America? Well, our indigenous communities were here. And so that was kind of the first connection I had and the first direction that I had as far as creating and what was created, and an understanding of maybe my own direction or my own journey with spirit. So that was how that was initiated.
Wow, let's see, that's really neat that you were able to ground in and to do that, and to actually acknowledge that at such a young age, that you really felt that.
Well, I think that there again, I felt very directed. It felt like I knew what I was supposed to be doing. I knew I was supposed to be drawing. I was drawing at a very early age. I was sketching, and I sketch every day to this day. So it's like, that's how it started, just through sketching anything that was around me. And like you said, like if it was a horse, or if it was outside, if it was a house, or if it was, a landscape, I just liked to sketch. And so it started like that. And, I was thinking about this. I was born and raised in the Midwest. You're from Ohio. I was in Iowa. And,
Yeah, Cincinnati area, yes.
Yeah. So that's considered kind of the heartland. I grew up on a street called Story Street.
Hello, Bonzam.
In a county called Story County. So I felt like I just had this story. And
wow,
I felt like the journey was the story. And now that I've come to this, my early 60s, now I'm like, that's what it is. We all have a story, and we're all sharing our experiences through this journey of our own story. So everybody has something to share because we all have a different perspective. This has been my perspective. I have followed it because I have felt that, we go through the school system, we go through the conditioning, we go through what we think we need to do. And I just got to the point where, no, I'm going to be as authentic as I can and follow this journey in a different way. And that's what I've been doing for the last probably 12 years. So much of what you see on my website is just a very prolific time period for me, where it just was flowing through like crazy. It was like I had no choice. It became a responsibility, and it just was flowing and flowing and flowing. And I always say, I have that artistic license to do and create whatever I need to create. So, and it happened to be, as we are here now at this point with you, it was definitely to just bring home the faces of our lost history, reclaim that
Yes.
part of us that we don't know about because it was never discussed. And let's, as a human species, all of us, share our stories and imagine where we would be if we could do that. I mean, we could really have learned so much from each other culturally, and it would have been a really neat experience. So I say we need to do that now, actually.
That's something that really resonated with me when I first started looking at all of your artwork. And even actually, I think that's pretty much what I felt when I was watching Brian Forster's video earlier today, too, is that it's like you're channeling, and you approach it. And what I noticed in it, and it seems you approach it with a very no nonsense, straightforward. I mean, you're not embellishing it. You don't have little sparkles and pieces of glitter and like, oh, they're doing this magic over here, and you're not bringing this like some sort of a fantasy or fantastical type perspective. You're making this like, and it is, and that's how you're approaching it. It seems, and it comes off as though this is something that I think has been channeled for this time and period where people have started opening up their minds. They're questioning. The DNA is out there now. The history is out there. The false narratives are starting to be, overturned. Just like we were talking earlier, like Columbus has not been on North America, and all of us are looking for answers. Mm-hmm. But there's so many places that you turn and where you can find different answers and stuff. And it's just, I think that's why there are some things out there that are quote unquote like a fantastical pseudoscience, because they're just doing whatever. Whereas if you look at yours, you can tell you've really sat down and taken the time to go through the anatomy, go through the information that has been retrieved by researchers and scientists, and you're actually seeming to put this all together in a legitimate, hey, here's the product. This is what the sum of all of these facts are telling me, and this is what I see here. And it does seem like that's what you're doing. I mean, you're giving us like a legitimate quote unquote photograph back into the ancient civilizations of human history. Or one of them that I noticed today that really amazed me. And matter of fact, I have quite a few pictures of yours and stuff that I did load up and stuff. But today, when I was looking at some of the information on the Paracas elongated skulls, I noticed when they turned them sideways, and I wish I would have, I might have uploaded, I don't know if I did or not, but where they were showing the base of the skulls, they were showing like how with the spine of our skulls go in, it's a much larger hole. I know the name of it. I can't think the name of what they called it, but there's a much larger hole for our spine. But the elongated ones were like a much smaller hole for the spinal area. And immediately they mentioned, that would give us an anatomy of somebody with more of an elongated neck, also not just an elongated skull. And I thought, wow, that's what Marcia had in her one. So, of course, I went back and I referred to that image that you had posted on Facebook, and that gave me a reference guide to where I could really look at this, and now I can see what I'm seeing them show me here, of these actual skulls, like literal skulls. I can put these together and look at this, picture or this illustration and stuff that Marcia has gave me. So now I understand even more fully what these people, what's being told by this information.
Right,
Um,
right.
how do you come about the information that you use to do your illustrations and sculptures?
Well, let me give you a little bit of history on this. I'll take you back about 12 years when I started to
Okay.
really create. I started CMR Studio. And that for me, I was based out of Florida at the time. And that for me it was my home, but it was like an entertainment studio for me. I was so interested and enamored with the story, a story, and the journey, and also animation. And so I really took the time to really dive into some of the tools that I hadn't utilized up to that point. I think that's another thing about our story, our chapters of life. All those tools that we have from each chapter just get in that belt of tools and become this phenomenal toolkit, especially for artists. So, but anyway, I was in Florida. I had this studio and I was creating characters for, you said it wasn't fanciful, but I started out very fanciful in that I was
Oh,
creating characters that were for a fanciful story about ancient Florida. I was learning so much about Florida, and there's so much to be learned about every cultural area of
yeah.
North America. There's so much going on, and Florida has a lot of lost history. So I was creating something fanciful. I was kind of like a Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings kind of thing. It was kind of like that. So I had all these characters I was developing, and I was fleshing out the storyline. And I noticed that a lot of the characters, and I was letting this just be really, just letting it flow, not really putting any thought into it, just really letting it flow and come out. And as I was creating some of these characters, most of them had elongated heads. And
Huh.
I thought that was so interesting. And, as a child, I even drew characters that had elongated heads. I always felt that that was a very natural head shape to have. And so my characters had these elongated heads. Now, I learned how to 3D sculpt, which is sculpting within the computer, and 3D modeling. And I had created a character, which is actually this one right back here that you're looking at.
Yeah, that's
Without
fantastic.
the hair, you would see the 3D aspect.
If you could, Dave, if you see the illustration that's behind her, I did upload a full size of that with her standing. She might be standing next to it or kneeling in front of it painting.
Yeah, absolutely. There is an image of that.
If you can pull the overlay of that up.
Yeah.
As
So
she's
that was
talking
my
about
first. That was my first. That's it right there. That was my first 3D sculpture. And, I really enhanced this one to make it look like an old photogravure, like an Edward Curtis photogravure. But if you take the hair off, there is an elongated skull. And so that was my first character. And I had been
That is beautiful.
on social media, and I believe I was following Brian Forster, or I think his stuff was kind of coming up into my, kind of coming up into sight for me. And I presented it to him. I presented this image, the 3D images, to him. And at that time, and I think this was about at least 10 years ago, at that time, no one had put a face to an elongated skull. And he said,
No.
may I post these? And I said, absolutely, go ahead. And I mean, from that point on, it was just like, his audience and the people that, were following me were just like blown away by having a face on an elongated skull. Just the thought,
Yes, it does me.
just taking that moment to open up again, open your mind to the possibilities. So through that, I actually kind of slowed down with my story and my journey with creating this animation, fanciful animation. And I thought, I need to learn more about these elongated heads. So I took a little bit of a side trail with this. And I really dove in with Brian Forster and a few other alternative researchers. And I wanted to reconstruct these elongated skulls. And initially I got images from Brian. He would send me photos. and I would just, their interpretations. They're not like, I'm not a licensed forensic artist. I know enough about anatomy that I can do this. And a big part of me said, nobody's doing this. Nobody is putting a face to these anomalies. So I just took this side trail and started to do that on my own. And it became so interesting for me that it became a big part, obviously, of what I'm doing now.
Now, for anybody that doesn't know what we're referring to as far as the elongated skulls, Dave, there is a picture of her. I think I might have even uploaded a picture of, or had you upload a picture of one of the actual a picture of one of the actual archaeological skulls. And then there's another one of a skull where Marcia is recreating. She literally, when you look at these sculptors, and from what I understand, I mean, you're literally creating the skull and then you're layering it on just basically as our anatomy goes. Now that one is...
this one, if I can just tell you a little bit about this is actually, some of the work that I do is 3D modeling within the computer. And then I decided that, I really wanted to put my hands traditionally with clay on a skull. And some of the skulls that I have are resin copies of actual skulls, elongated skulls. So I have forensically reconstructed them, just like a forensic artist would. So the first layer is a skull. And then you have muscle depth markers that kind of lay out an idea of how the muscle will lay under the skin. And then I have glass eyes, and then I have polymer clay. And so all of this is actually, a big part of this is knowing a little bit about the anthropology report behind it, if there is one, or if there isn't one, then, a lot of this is just kind of letting it flow intuitively. It just comes out. And that's where, as an artist, when you put hands on to something like this, especially a face from the past, it will guide you. It will tell you.
There should be more pictures in there, Dave.
It will form itself. It really will. And it's hard to describe when you're an artist how this really works. But
now, is this one of your resins that you're holding, or is this one of the...
That is a resin.
So you really went all the way down and made a resin of the skulls themselves?
No, that was actually given to me. I've had a lot of people come my way wanting to have reconstructions done of some of these skulls. So they will send me either a 3D print of a skull, or they'll send me something like this, which is actually a resin, kind of a resin copy of a skull. And
you're right, Bonzam in New Zealand said it's like CSI.
A little bit. Yeah. So that's how
now for
has started.
A lot of people that don't, if they're not familiar with, I guess a little bit of the background on the elongated skulls, these, and some people, it depends. I mean, and people have tried to dismiss them, but these seem to be naturally occurring. All the science and everything has confirmed that these elongated skulls are naturally occurring, and they have been discovered around some of the megaliths. They've been discovered in Paracas, Peru. They've been discovered actually up and down the region where I live at, in the mound builders areas. I'm trying to think. I know around the Stonehenge, some of the megalithic areas they've been discovered, and of course, I don't know if some actually don't realize this, but like Amenhotep in Egypt, and some of them, their lines are the elongated skulls also. And DNA has been done on some of these skulls, which takes them up into like the Caspian and the Black Sea region and areas. Yeah. There are some, people that come and they say, oh, well, these were created and this was done this way. Yes, there are some that have been done this way, but the question goes back to, where was their inspiration? What made a race of people or a group of people or a culture of people decide, we're just all at once going to start binding our children's heads and making them longer? There was some sort of an inspiration that they visually saw that made them start doing this. And when they have went back and looked at the various skulls, and there's still some today, I think I uploaded a picture of that still do the binding, but you can look anatomically, and there is without question, there's a difference in these skulls that are naturally occurring compared to those that are bound. The ones that are bound have a tendency to be flat. Um, the skulls taper off at the end because they can't create more skulls, so the skull gets smaller. These skulls themselves are larger. They have many anatomical differences compared to our skulls. On top of it, and the ones that were in Paracas were basically like the redhead blonde. So they had like a cinnamon red kind of color hair. So their DNA is completely different. What did you notice, or did he said, is this human evolutionary, or are they part of the population? Actually, that's interesting that you say that. I don't know what Marcia's opinion is of it. My opinion is they were here um, before we came about, is what I fully believe. I think maybe they've even, like the name Amenhotep, it actually means, to be hidden, and hidden in the power of the eyes. I think they were trying to hide who they are. I think maybe that's even why he was scratched off some of the monuments and stuff once. I mean, he came out and just said, depict me as I am. I'm not hiding who I am. I think that's kind of what happened. I think that's how they've ended up in South America. They might have had to flee. I think that's how some of them ended up in Ireland and different places. And actually, I supposedly, through my DNA and Clan Robertson and through the Stuarts and everything, my family line is said to descend from Skoda, which might be Meritatan, which is the sister of Tutankhamun. And of course, that's Amenhotep. And of course, to me, the whole thing, I think we're all starting to see and learn and channel these things. Do you feel maybe there's something inside of you? Like, I think that we all, and it's so funny now they are starting to talk about it, but I think that our DNA, and they are starting to try to imprint DNA to use it like a CPU to hold memory. I think our DNA holds the memory of our ancestors. Do you think that it's possible that maybe what you're channeling is ancestors? Maybe you have this ancient bloodline within you?
I think it takes one to know one.
I
mean, it takes one to know one. And I want to give you a little bit more information on the actual skulls. So
yes,
I
thanks.
started to reconstruct with Brian because he was doing most of the research down in Peru with the ancient Paracas. And they lived along the coast about 3,000 years ago. Now, through his research, 4% are not natural. 4% are natural looking head shapes. And the rest of the skulls that you see out there are emulating something. So they are head binders and they're emulating that shape. Now you will find elongated skulls on every continent. If you dive into Brian's research, he's got some phenomenal studies. That's why I went directly with him, because I'm like,
I think he's written, is it like 30 something books?
I don't know how many he's written, but I know that I'm the storyteller as a visual artist, and he is the researcher. And, I like that because I'm letting it flow through me. I don't want to get so caught up into the research that it doesn't flow through me. So I like the assistance of having a researcher that can give me some information, and then I will go from there and just let it tap on me and flow through. So 4% are natural. The rest of them have been head binders, but you will see this on every continent. So that is the question. Who were they emulating?
Yeah. They had to be seeing, and I even thought about and actually I think somebody had commented on that on one of your posts, where you see like even the neck rings where they elongate the necks also.
Yeah. So with the skulls that are natural, you will see on the bottom of the skull where the spine meets the neck in the skull, and it's called the foramen magnum. That's the hole.
That was the name I was trying to remember.
And it is pushed back about an inch from that of a human skull. I actually, when I was working with a skull that was natural, I saw that. And when I saw that, I said, you know what? When I used to work in architecture, we had a kind of a standard form, and it was oh gosh, I'm going to space this out as a 60-year-old. I'm going to space this out. But form follows function. So
Yes.
that's an architectural, kind of an architectural mindset right there. Form follows function. Well, I took that and I said, okay, form follows function. If you have a foramen magnum that is pushed way back and you have this elongated head, how are you going to balance this? Form follows function. So I think our natural skulls, elongated skulls, they had a long, slender neck to balance the elongated skull. And then they even their stance even stood almost like an S curve in order to balance this head shape with the long neck and the body. So you're seeing that of some of these Egyptian sculptures. You'll see some of these bodies that have wide hips, and some have kind of these interesting, very feminine tummies, these males.
Amenhotep has that a lot in his, actually.
Exactly. So you see this shape and you're like, there it is right there. They have a different stance, and they probably even had a different way of speaking. I mean, vocally, they didn't probably sound like us. So a lot of that comes from just knowing that is pushed back, that foramen magnum is pushed back just an inch from the human skull shape. There's a lot of information there. That's really key, actually, because then that tells you, okay, wait a minute, humans are not like that. So if we're emulating something, who are we emulating? Where is this coming from? And that has been the trail I've been on for probably the last 10 years. So, and everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different perception.
Yeah.
You're following your own journey. And so you can only interpret what, I can only give this as an interpretation, as a journey that I'm taking. It doesn't mean it's spot on, or maybe it is spot on, but I'm always just telling people, just if you resonate with this, then take your own information and dive into it a little bit more and research it a little bit more. And you never know where the trail will lead. You just never know. So
I know just by seeing, well, your artwork is what brought me more into it. I had started, like I had said, with family lines. And I do really, what got me into everything is, well, I mean, besides the fun artwork and the growing up with the wizards and Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff, it slowly, I learned more and more, but genealogy, that is my thing. And the more I studied it and the more I learned and followed, and also the more often I kept seeing all these little asterisks that would say mythological genealogy. I'm like, well, why is it? Oh, because it's oral history. And I thought, well, why? Okay, so how come this one is considered legitimate even though it's oral, but this one's oral and it's not legitimate? And just the more I started following it, the more fascinated I had became, with the entire subject matter. And then the more that I looked into the subject matter, the more intrigued that I got. And then the more even historical and archaeological, just the more correlations I started noticing across the entire globe. And I started thinking, wait a minute, this has been a global civilization. This is.
We got a little stuck there.
Isn't just like a storm. I hope we don't see him. And then another
froze.
You there?
You froze.
Oh, okay. And then, and then see, it's because we're having this subject.
Probably. Could be.
I know, right? And then you've got this, this tribe over here in South America. Well, wow, that's interesting. They actually happen to be doing the same thing that they're doing all the way over here. And then I started looking at oh, wait a minute now, because I, go to I'm right here in the region of the Great Serpent Mound, and the Miamisburg Mound is only about 20 minutes from me, and the entire area where I'm at, I mean, the entire area, they are watching, and the entire area that we're at, they knew what we were going to do before we did it. But
there again, I'll just interject.
We've got them everywhere.
I'll interject real quickly with your oral history. So see, that's where the connection with the indigenous then that I had
Yes.
as it was flowing through, then who am I going to follow to actually follow a trail to get information? Well, I'm going to follow the indigenous trail, the oral history, the stories, the legends, the myths that lead me
Brilliant.
all the way around the world. So that's been basically how I have opened the door with that information. And then, of course, also just intuitively doing this and letting it flow through. You really have to trust that. A lot of people poo-poo that, but if you don't trust your intuitive side, in fact, when I'm working on these elongated skulls sculpturally, there will be little epiphanies that will form for me. And one of the biggest ones was bring back the balance. And I was like, bring back the balance. That sounds so simple. Maybe even my mother would have said that. Everything in balance.
Huh.
Bring back the balance. So basically what they were
Yeah.
telling me was bring back the balance between your own spirit and that of technology or intuition, a knowing. So bring back being rooted to the planet and the spirit of that, and the technology of just your knowing and your intuitiveness on connecting. And that is why wouldn't we want to have a head shape that's longer? Because what we're doing is we are elongating the head. We are expanding our consciousness. So
Yeah.
we are heading out into the cosmos and trying to expand intuitively, getting in tune and tapped in with just knowing that we probably once had and have forgotten.
I do think that, yeah, I do think that is. I know I was surprised when I seen like, I mean, just in anatomically, like they've showed like the fetuses, like the heads of the fetuses are the same size as, say, their torso and their bodies and stuff. I mean, anybody that, is hearing about this or anything for the first time, or, didn't know quite as much, which I thought I knew some about it and found out I didn't know anything. If this does, resonate or just pique some curiosity after the video, after the podcast, pull up some podcasts and stuff, learn about it and research it. If you have, and I always kind of felt like this, my dad always taught us, he's 75 years old and just bought kayaks. My dad's one of those never stop learning people, always keep taking classes, never stop learning. He builds his computers and all this stuff. So I always feel if you have something that piques your interest and does a question, go find out what it is. Just there's got to be a reason that something inside of you is resonating or wanting to ask those questions. Now, you have, from what I understand, you do have maybe a Native American background.
I have some connection there, and I don't really dive into that too much, but I also
Yes.
had a Native American family, a Toyopspe, from the Midwest. My adopted mother, her name was Maria Pearson, and she was a really started something pretty fantastic for North America. She initiated NAGPRA, which is the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act from the state of Iowa in 1990. So
I only know that from genealogy. I
yes,
have heard of that. Oh
exactly.
my gosh.
So she was my adopted mother and wonderful friend. And through her and connecting with her, I believe that when she transitioned, it felt like it was my job and my responsibility in a different way to kind of hone in and reclaim our lost, our lost ancients, bring them home. They want to come home. They want to tell the story. And that's what I've been doing. So
Now, with that being said, I noticed with a lot of your artwork, and you'll find them in, I don't know if they didn't look like they loaded up in order, Dave, but you'll see some pictures where some of the different images that she has with the elongated skulls, they have more of like a native appearance to them.
yeah, like I said, the 4% that are natural would definitely look different than those that are emulating. And most that were emulating, and the trail that I'm following, not only those down in Peru, I mean, like your Inca, they had,
Yes.
and a lot of the cultures down there had elongated head shapes. And then here in North America, you'll find it almost in every different cultural area. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it was very prevalent. And I noticed one of your followers put up a question about royalty. And yes, a lot of those of hierarchy did uh, emulate this head shape. For
You
sure.
know, I was wondering about that too when I started studying and doing a little bit more of the I guess a little bit more into the culture versus the DNA and following the bones of it, kind of trail. When I started learning a little bit further out, that did kind of strike me as interesting that it does seem to be the royalty of the ancient civilizations, that the ones that, like you're saying, were the natural born of the elongated skull. It seems like they really were. Um,
There's Maria right there.
how neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, that does seem like they were royalty. So I can't help but to wonder. I mean, apparently, for them to be royalty, either they've had abilities, maybe that we wouldn't. A lot of people would be surprised. Maybe psychic abilities or such. But at the same time, there must have been something about them that others. I don't know that other. I don't know if I'd say it would be subservient or respected, or there was something to it that made them. I don't. Maybe even just from the ancients. Maybe they. Generationally, just became the royalty from generation after generation.
I
Um,
think this goes back. There's a lot to this story. And I think that if we go way back, to the Atlantis, that time period, and we see and we hear about the master builders, the architects,
yes.
and the architects, more than not, come across physically by just by people who are studying this. And uh, again, it's their own story, it's their own interpretation, but more than not, you will see those builders, those architects, as ones having elongated heads. So they were the ones that came to the planet and were the ones that created these or helped create and show how to create these megalithic structures, which included the pyramids and everything else that we see on the planet. So if that was what they did, and if they were considered royalty on that level, if they were considered architects creating a little bit of our civilization here, then I would think that the royalty aspect of it would be, that's what you want to be seen as, someone with this extra uh, what do I want to say, this extra power, so to speak, of this knowing of how to do this. So royalty did do this. And I'm being very vague here because there's a huge open door when you talk about the royalty aspect of this, and I don't dive into that too much because a lot of the work that I like to present is very positive. I like
Yes.
my road to be positive. I don't like the negative aspects, and the negative aspects sometimes come in and make their way in. But for the most part, I am following a very benevolent direction. And I've learned to do that. And the energies that come through me, I want them to be of a benevolent, uh, entity of any nature. So any information I get is of positive.
Now, actually,
You see,
A.W. Skelly. Now, here's one. It is a binding.
yeah, that's head binding, and they still do this in Africa. And you'd mentioned, or someone had asked, are they still doing this today? And I believe there are people that are still doing this today. In fact, I've talked to a woman that said she is of that lineage where they're still doing this today. It might
Wow,
not be
isn't
in your face, and it might not, the hair might cover it up for the most part, but they are of that lineage, and it still comes forth in their DNA.
see, and that's just so amazing to me that, and they've left such an impact after a point that we're sitting back and we're even at the point where, of course, many people, like you're saying, many people are like, oh, well, none of that's naturally occurring, or, oh, that's mythology, or we're at the point to where everybody's forgotten. But apparently there's something about them that didn't forget, or they wouldn't still be doing this. A.W. Skelly had a great question. He said, have you done a reconstructive art around the Paleo Indians and an elongated skull person with the Paleo Indians?
Not really. I have followed the trail of I followed the trail of some of our mound building complexes, and you will actually find photographs in Florida of some of the burial mounds that had elongated skulls. And I believe there's also up in the Superior area, there are actual photographs of elongated skulls. And then again, when you get over here to the Pacific Northwest, you have many of the indigenous cultural areas were head binders. And there's all kinds of information about that out here. So
now
as
in
far
that
as,
area,
Paleo Indians and reconstructing them with elongated heads, I guess, if you wanted to kind of say that, our indigenous cultures are a part of that, then yeah, I guess I have been doing some reconstructions on that level. Yeah.
wow. The producer said he is Lakota. Okay. He said he is a Lakota Sioux
Lakota Sioux.
descendant, and lives in Iowa. He said he met Maria once.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
That's great. Yeah,
He does
Maria
get involved
was
in that, so he
quite an
probably has.
inspiration. Huh?
I said he does get involved in that stuff, so he probably did. Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah, that is very cool. Maria was Yankton.
I was getting ready to ask you that.
Yeah, she was Yankton. So she was from the kind of the southeastern part of South Dakota, but she ended up in the state of Iowa. That's where she lived most of her adult life. In Ames. She was in Ames for quite a long time.
I know I look at a lot of these, I look at like, Cahokia and a lot of these, the remains, and like you just mentioned, is that Clearwater, Florida? I'm trying to remember what section. A lot of these areas of Florida and stuff like this.
Crystal River.
Crystal River. That's where that. You're right. When I look at these sites, and even just like the Great Serpent Mound or any of these areas, to me, in my opinion, it's evident that these are immensely old. I mean, they're just immensely old. And to me, I feel, even some of these mountains, like if you look at, say, like the pyramids in Urdu, you look at the actual pyramid itself, but then you look at the top of it, and it looks almost like a little rubbly mountain. I think there's so many areas all across the United States of America, and of course, on our side of the pond, or the Atlantic as they call it, we have more pyramids here than what they do over there. And I don't know, or I haven't really ran into it or anything. Is there any mythology in, or would you know of, that is in like the North American or any of our lore regarding pyramids?
I don't know specifically right offhand, but I do know there's so many pyramid complexes in this country, this aspect of North America, and even out here in Washington, there is a phenomenal pyramid just south of me.
Oh, there is?
It's a pyramid shape, and I don't like to talk.
It probably is one too.
It's called Tum Tum Mountain. And a friend of mine has done a lot of research around this, and it is definitely a pyramid. This is such an undiscovered continent. I mean, there has been so much that has not come forth about, North America is, as open and free as we think we are really shutting the doors when it comes to this kind of information. Really shutting the doors. And
I'm going to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I have reason to say that, because I've been asked to do several things in this country, and the door gets shut because of
it doesn't follow the narrative or the grant money.
It doesn't follow the narrative. So
now that is really sad. Now, Dave, if you look in there, there's a picture, and it does show, it's one of the Deana Indian reconstructions that she did, and it shows like a modern man next to the Deana Indian, and he's quite a bit larger. I know from working like
trail. I wanted to let you know that when I was creating that story, I took time off to follow the trail with the elongated heads, and then I also took time to follow a trail with our tall people here in North America, and following these mound building complexes and actual skull and skeleton data from the Smithsonian, I was able to, and again, this is an interpretation. So I'm interpreting this, but nobody has. So there's nothing to base it on. So I'm just saying, take a look at it. Maybe it's
Yes.
not 100% correct, but it's something that we can look at and go, oh my gosh, this is a part of our history and we don't know anything about it. So yeah, we had tall people here for sure, and they did have cranial deformation.
Okay, so they did have that together. I was wondering about that. I know Putnam, when they did when they took apart the Great Serpent Mound and they did the reconstruction of that with the Peabody Institute, they had found some tall people, and it had been taken. Their remains, from what I understood, I think it was over towards the altar area of it, was taken to the Smithsonian. And if I remember right, actually A.W. Skelly might remember. If I remember right, I think that Jeffrey Wilson did get to view. I don't know if he got to view the. I think he did. I think he viewed some of the tall people that was there. But now I wasn't aware that they. And when I seen your image, I was going to ask you that question. I wasn't aware if they were, if the tall, the giant size, whatever, if that was found in to also be at the same time with the elongated skull, if it kind of like was the same, head and body configurations.
Well, it was 2,000, 3,000 year period, and that was, those cultures were here at that time. So Cahokia, I don't know specifically the dates, but you look at one of the main mound complexes for me is Crystal River, because Crystal
Yes.
River in Florida was a hub, just like up here in the Northwest coast, up here in the Pacific Northwest. This was a hub too for maritime sailors. There was all kinds of activity going on down at Crystal River, and it was such a hub that people brought, for miles, they brought their dead to actually go through ceremony and bury their dead at Crystal River. There are still some Inuit from Alaska that travel to Crystal River every year to do prayer. And I learned that because I actually created a mural for Crystal River that's inside of their museum. I wish I could have created that a little bit more accurately according to what I believe, but it's very predicted information on this mural. But I told the archaeologists, I said, if I was really doing this correctly, I would have tall people walking around, giants, and I would also have those with elongated heads, because they were here and there's evidence of that. But you're not going to allow me to do that. So it is what it is. So
see, that's where I think it is refreshing, and it is, but that you are keeping true to, I guess, what your convictions are, I guess is what I would call it, or your center. And it's opening up the door to where, there's just some people out there that, like, say, Tom Dongo. There's some people out there that they've had to take the hits, or even Uri Geller. There's some people out there with whatever it is that they're teaching or whatever they're talking about. They have to take the hits from everybody, I guess, saying, oh, I can't believe you're discussing this. Oh, you don't really believe that, do you? Or now that's not true. Or where are you getting this from? Kind of stuff like that. But it opens up the door for discussion, just like those that first said, hey, Columbus didn't set foot, in America, or those that say, hey, actually, there wasn't anything buried in that pyramid. As far as, there's always somebody out there that finally has to be the pioneer in conversations to get the conversations going. I think your artwork opens up that type of a pioneer spirit where people can look at it, or even sit at home, which is the great advent of YouTube, sit at home and watch, say Brian Forrester's videos and really think about it. And it opens up that door to where you can actually have that conversation with other people,
right.
and kind of get a little bit further and discuss it even more. Whereas, like you're saying, when you were doing, how long is, whenever you did the Crystal River, was it like a taboo subject for them to, I guess, have the elongated skulls and the tall people together?
I don't even think it was a part of their thinking, to be honest. I had, when another thing that I focus on is wherever I am, I'm like I told you at the beginning, as a child, came in rooted to the land. So when I move to a different cultural area, I immediately I can feel the history of it. I can feel the ancients. I can feel them coming
Yeah.
forth. And as I'm creating, I'm letting them unfold. Yes, I'm using a lot of data that comes from actual research, but at the same time, I've got an open artistic license to create intuitively, and it's an interpretation. And more than not, just by all the people that are so interested in this work, it must be, it's getting close to spot on, because people are resonating with this. People are in vibration with this. They're
Yes.
understanding this, and it's opening a door for them. So I'm here as a storyteller. I am here as a visual artist to open that door. Open your mind and now your heart, because more than anything, these elongated heads, now they have told me that not only we did not want you to expand your heads, we did not want you to emulate us. We wanted you to be human. You are perfectly human as you are. And you are supposed to not expand through your head. You're supposed to expand through your heart. That's why you're human. You're here to do that. So as we're starting to do that, as a collective, I'm seeing more and more people understand these topics. It's just coming out. They're really coming through more and more. I mean, on social media, I'm like, I'll post something from 10 years ago, and I'm getting more response now than I did back then, because back then I was tapped into it. But now everyone is starting to get tapped into it, and they're asking the deeper questions. And that is so important. We want to know why we are here. Where did we come from? And where are we going? Where are we going? We never talk about that. We don't want to talk about the
No.
stuff. So it's
I
like,
I think
that was
that's what's
always a big
pivotal with your work too.
What's that?
I said I think that is something that's pivotal about your work too. It's almost like you've tapped out that little channel, and now it's opened the way to where there's more of a current going in that direction, to where we can actually visually look and see. I mean, to me, when I seen the even just the 3D images, but then especially when I seen like the drawings that you did, say of this lady here, and then of the Adena Indian. Actually, there's another overlay that's in there, Dave, of her standing next to another artwork that has more of like the plumed, might have been plumed or feathered head. I think, yeah, right there. That is just incredible. But when I look at that, I mean, I can't help to see. It's almost like you feel like you're looking at a point in time where it was just really taken, that was just taken, that like you feel this, you resonate with it, you feel like this isn't just an artwork. It's like it's a reality. Like somebody is really teaching us things that we didn't. It gives us a visual to what we've been questioning is out there, or was out there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm utilizing my skills and my tools, and even just my knowing and letting it come through. And this is how it comes through. And you know what, to be honest with you, on many levels, I know I'm a pretty creative person, and I know I have the skills for it.
Yeah.
But I can look at the work at the end of the day and go, where in the world did this come from? So it even surprises me. I'll go, wow, this is amazing. Right now, and I'm sure you'll get to this at some point, I'm reconstructing the Peking Man. And
yeah, actually, that's fascinating.
That was something I never, ever thought I would reconstruct. I was always kind of headed with these elongated heads. But then all of a sudden, this primal man really tapped on me and said, you need to reconstruct me. Because I think everything evolves, everything that has been reconstructed before, you see a lot of things that are being reconstructed, but I take on a lot of this stuff because I'm like, I'm not sure if that's where that needs to be. I think we need to evolve that to the next layer, so to speak. It needs to, maybe we weren't really visually pulling that out as best we could. So I want to just try this. And the Peking Man was one of those skulls where I was like, well, let's give it a shot. And I have been unbelievably surprised with this. I'm really enjoying the way that this is flowing.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to take a really quick intermission break for a commercial, and then
Okay.
we're going to come back, and I would like to actually get into the subject of the Peking man that you're doing.
Okay. Because this
Okay,
goes
cool.
in a whole nother direction.
We will be right back, folks. All right, we are back. I was trying to go over some of the pictures here real quick. What I'm going to let you first, or if you wanted to explain, who the Peking man is, why he's, or why it, or why this is considered to be relevant to our culture, and then I'll let you explain it. I'm not going to go into the urine man, all this. I'm going to let you explain the Peking man.
Okay. Well, as I said, when I was creating this story, I started to take these trails. One of the trails was the elongated heads. The next trail was the tall people, the giants of our mound building complexes. The third trail was something that also followed me when I was young, and that was our connection with the forest people, our connection with the Sasquatch people, the Bigfoot people. And that has been a part of my trail for a very long time.
That's beautiful.
Since I was a little girl. And now that I've been living out here in the Pacific Northwest, and I knew this would come back at some point. I knew from the youth that I had a connection with this, I knew that I'd be here in the Pacific Northwest and really have to dive in and connect with this aspect of me and this aspect of the forest people, or the Sasquatch.
There's a reason the universe has you there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the trail for me went from Florida, and then I took a big leap of faith and came up here to Washington. So I moved from coast to coast. And so I've been up here in Washington for 4 years, and I have really hiked into these mountains and hiked into these forests, and really I've gotten so connected, not only with people, other people that are very connected, but my own connection of what's out there behind the veil, so to speak.
Yeah. And those forests are so, I'm Druid, and those forests out there are so old. The energy is so old. It's just ancient energy that you're getting to tap into.
Yeah. And they're not only are they ancient on that level, but they're big, they're gigantic, they're giants.
So you literally can drive a car through some of these.
Yeah, you have giant energy out here, and you can feel it, this giant energy. So I started to, initially I was coming out here to follow the trail with the elongated heads. And I was really, the journey led to different indigenous groups along the coast, and talking with elders and people of the community about the elongated heads. But I did ask, And I had a knowing as well, but I wanted to ask, and I asked, who were you emulating with this head shape? And a lot of them don't know, because this is lost information, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And even our indigenous communities don't know about this head shape too much, but some of them do. And some of them, and even throughout, even if you take a look at their legends and their stories and their myths, it's all about the wild man and the wild woman and that connection to the forest. And so then I had to ask, well, with the elongated heads out in the Pacific Northwest, it's a little bit different head shape. It's a little bit more crested, and they call it kind of like a bread kind of head shape. That's what they call it, a bread loaf.
Yeah.
So many of those that I talked to said that we were emulating because we wanted that expanded consciousness of our forest people. So we were emulating them. And when you hear a lot of the stories about people that have seen Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you will relate to the head shape or the crested head shape. Most always, you will hear descriptions of they have a crested head shape, and then that journey led me into primal man. So our indigenous people out here, the ones that I connected with, and kind of my own intuition, has led me to believe that some of the headbinders in this region were connecting or emulating with the forest people. They wanted to be like them.
Oh.
They thought they were so in tune and so druid-like, as in interdimensional beings. One minute you can see them, next minute you can't. So there's that frequency exchange where they're invisible, but yet they're here, and that there is that connection. And there's also a DNA connection out here. Some of the people will say we have the DNA of the Sasquatch people. So
Wow.
has been the trail that I'm on right now. The elongated heads and how that emulates with the trail of our primal man in the forest, our Sasquatch, our Bigfoot people. And that's how I got connected with, or got actually kind of, these skulls kind of, they want you to reconstruct them. So that's how I got tapped, so to speak, with this man, a primal man that's over in Eastern Eurasia from the caves 300,000 years ago plus. And he said, I want my face reconstructed. So I was able to get a resin copy of the Peking Man. And there's a huge story around a mystery actually about Peking Man, because around World War II, right during the Pearl Harbor attack, and when China was going to kind of get involved in the war, the skull and the skeleton completely disappeared. And it is supposedly, in fact, I have a friend that wrote a whole screenplay on this. It's a huge mystery. We don't know where that primal man went. I mean, the Chinese want it to be Chinese. I mean, everybody else wants it to be them. So where did this skull go? It is really a mystery. And if you go on YouTube, you can really, there are a lot of documentaries on the Peking Man.
Yes, there are.
And
I even read one where an article that I read that said that I guess they thought they may know where it's at, and these people went to go check where it was, and this guy was he was in the army and he had the box, and then I guess at some point he lost the box, and these other people were in a foxhole or something, is what my understanding was, a bunker or a foxhole, and as they were digging the foxholes, they found a box of bones and left it there. So now people are thinking that could be those bones, but then they went and it's under a parking lot, and I'm like, that could have been a box of any kind of bones. I think that I think it's in the Smithsonian or somewhere like that. Probably.
It could be over here in the States. That's actually where it was
probably
headed.
Somewhere. They probably know exactly where it is.
That's actually where it was headed, and it's a possibility. I believe the nephew of the researcher that was over in China, the archaeologist, was the one that created that documentary that you just described. So
Ah,
he's on the trail of finding this as well. He's like, what happened to my grandfather's research? So anyway, I have been reconstructing the Peking man, and I am finding out that a lot of the qualities of this head shape are qualities that I just intuitively feel from our primal people and our forest people, our Sasquatch people. So there is a connect. I believe there is a connection there, and I believe there's a connection with the dragon man, the you know the Denisovans.
yeah, Denisovan.
Denisovan. I always get
Yeah.
that wrong because I talked to Andrew Collins, and he always corrects me on that one. Always because everyone has a different way of pronouncing that. But anyway, the Dragon Man.
Now I have a picture. Actually, I uploaded some pictures, Dave. There's pictures of her working on the Peking man. He has like it'd be like a flesh color face, and then he has like a fur, like fur around the outside of him. And then I even uploaded some. It was a photograph of the statues that are made of the urine, in the Yerin, which is quote unquote Sasquatch over in China. Yeah, this is the Peking man that isn't she fantastic? I've looked at them before, and every time I see them, I see something new each time. Actually, I just realized I'm catching myself leaning in, looking at them again. I just realized I was doing that on the video.
These are it's in progress. So, but when I do process like this, when I'm working on these, because it evolves, it just constantly evolves. So these are kind of beginning stages of the sculpture, and the clay is just that color. It's polymer clay.
Okay.
So ultimately, the face will end up a different color, but you do have glass eyes, and I have a sheepskin. And I said one night, I'm just going to throw the sheepskin over this head and see what comes through. And this is what came through. And it really made me just open my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, that really just,
you channeled that
right there. I was like, I'm on the trail with this. I know I'm on the trail with something that's really cool. So
yeah, because that is absolutely spot on. Like when they like the statues that they have of the
there you go,
that park area, when they actually pull that one up, Dave, if you don't mind. It's like two black sculptures. It's a mother and the child right there.
Yeah.
And then that
sculpture. I love that.
Yeah, and then the man to the right of it, at the top right, he's showing, and the drawings that he has there, I couldn't make it much larger with it being what it was. He's showing actual, at the very top, images of footprints, and it's just, it's drawn out of footprints that they found of these urine, which is what the statue is below. And then the other drawings below that are images of like eyewitness images and stuff. But this and these the sculpture is made off of eyewitness and years, generations, I guess, technically, to all that porn. He said this screams Yeti. Exactly, it does. This screams Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Yeah. As soon as I seen it, I kept thinking, I've seen that somewhere before, and it didn't click. And then when I started searching Peking man, because I thought, well, she knows so much more about this stuff than I do. I was just telling Phoenix, I said, I'm going to have to learn some things for me to be able to carry on a conversation with her, with you. I was worried about it. So when I started searching it, and then I pulled, and then when I pulled up those statues that they have going into that, I guess it's the legendary area where the Yurden is. When I pulled it up, I was like, whoa. That's spot on Marsha's sculptor that she's doing of the Peking man.
Now, the Peking man does not have a crested head shape. It doesn't have that elongated shape. But
yeah, I was wondering about that.
It does have the characteristics that just is going to take me to the next step of what this is all about. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this journey. I'm like, this is tapping through. This is supposed to bring back information that will just take me to the next step. And then the one that you posted earlier, the first one that you posted, was a 3D sculpture that I created, the gray one.
Oh, the Sabe.
Yes. And that
There's
has
pulled up
more of
that
the
gray
crested.
picture again, Dave, please. Dave's not here. No.
Oops. That's a great picture, but no,
Yeah, the one
it's the
of
big.
the yeah, like Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
There you go, right there. So that was actually a 3D sculpture that I created. And then I went back in digitally and enhanced it. And you know what? I never think about these things. I just let it flow. And this is what came through. This is what came through. And I was like, oh my gosh, that
Wow.
feels to me spot on. But you know what? Everyone has a different
It
perception.
does.
Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different interpretation, and everyone has a different perspective. So this is what resonates for me. And if it resonates for others, then it's just more information to give to the collective to create their own knowing about this, to
For
understand.
me, all of the eyewitness studies and everything, because I'm in the Dayton, Ohio area, but I'm very frequently in different areas of Ohio, plus Oxford area, where my alma mater, my university is out there, and out past that way, there's been tons of Sasquatch sightings, and then a couple parks, where they're national park stuff that I go to on the opposite side of Ohio, and out around the Ohio University and Hocking Hills area and everything. There's been sightings in all of those areas. So all the people that I've talked to that have had what they feel to themselves, there was no questioning what they saw. Sasquatch sightings, what you are depicting there, it's spot on. I mean, it looks just exactly what they described personally.
I think there's a connection with everything that comes through me. So there's a connection with the indigenous oral history, the legends, the myths, the stories. There's a connection with the elongated heads. There's a connection with the tall people, the giants, and there's a connection with primal man and Sasquatch. A lot of the Sasquatch, our Adena people were 8 foot tall, and a lot of our Sasquatch
Yes.
people are of that height or high or taller, but are of that height as well. What is going on here? Is there a hybrid situation going on here? Is there a connection? There's a connection with all of this. And so I'm just trying to form that little journey for myself, and hoping that it really opens the door to other people as well. I really trust, and I've had to really learn to trust my journey. Because like you said, a lot of people just poo-poo this stuff all the time. And,
Yeah,
and,
they
and a
do.
lot of people take it seriously to the point of very negative. And I've had a lot of negative stuff thrown at me. I don't like to talk about that too much. A lot of negative, watch out, that kind of information. You don't want to be doing this. You don't want to be reconstructing these. You don't want to be la, 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 la. So I just have said, you know what? Stay on the trail, stay on the path. This is your journey. This is your story. Create this the way that it needs to be created. Nothing will affect this, and get the information out there. And if people resonate with it, great. If they don't, you know,
Yeah, Don said you're definitely onto something here. Don't listen to the haters. Stay this course.
thank you.
I
Yeah,
do agree, and I think maybe even with what he just said, when you say that you feel it resonating with you, and it's just coming from you, I think you also need to know that what you're doing is resonating with us also.
good. I'm glad. That really supports my heart.
Now, you
Good.
can feel something in there that it's like something that you've known.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it is kind of neat.
Really, on many levels, and not to, tap myself on the back, but I do feel on many levels, this is my creative responsibility. This is why I'm here now, to actually kind of bring this forth. And I've been doing the best I can with it. It hasn't been an easy journey, but it is a journey, and I'm going to just unfold the story the best I can. So
Now, when you mention and you talk about a lot of the quote unquote, people trying to shut it down or keep the narrative, squelched, really even the Peking man or the Yurden, the quote unquote Sasquatch over in China, China. But anyway, won't say that word. Um, that became such an issue that a lot of the workers, they wouldn't come in, like the farmers, they wouldn't farm their fields because of the legends about urine, or somebody thought one was seen. And it got to the point to where they literally, their government had came in and they just forbid people to discuss urine or quote unquote Bigfoot over in China and that area and provinces. The discussion wasn't allowed to be talked about. I mean, they literally squelched anybody talking about that because to them they felt that it was distracting, and everything else. So when a government that big comes in and tries to silence legends or mythology and stuff, to me there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, anything that forms fear around it is, of course, something to keep an eye open to. Why are they shutting this down? For me, the whole primal man, or the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, I'm saying all the names because just so your viewers can understand this, is a real personal journey. This is a real personal aspect of yourself, because in essence, when you learn more about energy around yourself and the way that you are in frequency with energy, how you're vibrating and resonating, you are, what you perceive is what you receive energetically. So if I go out into the forest, and a lot of these guys with the Bigfoot, they'll go out there almost wanting to slay the dragon, so to speak. And if you go out with that energy, this is where it gets really interesting. When you go out with that energy, that is what you're going to get. For me, when I go out into the forest, I set intentions. I want to have a great walk. I want to have a great hike.
Yes.
I want to have, if anything shows itself, I am grateful for it. I will open the door for it. And that gives me a whole different feeling around this, So when you're shutting down someone's internal consciousness, your heart expansion, and when you're saying, we don't want you talking about this, well, you're shutting down a big aspect of people expanding their consciousness through understanding these interdimensional beings, or anything that is of history that we have not discussed on a level that needs to be discussed. This is our right to know this as a human being. We're here to bring this back. We want to know the story.
Yeah.
We want to claim them. This is the human story. We want to know who we are. And so I would suggest anyone that hangs out in the fear department, don't do it. It's a waste of time. And what you're doing is you're not expanding your own self at all. And that's why we're here, to expand, to have these experiences, and to expand in a really loving and wonderful way. And it sounds, cheeseball on so many levels, but it's not. We're here for love. We are here to expand through experiences.
I do. We're here to grow.
Absolutely. So, and this is how we're learning. This is how I'm learning. I'm learning through reconstructing the past. Other people learn it through other ways, but this is the way I'm doing it. And it's helping me just get a better understanding of why I'm even here. Why am I here? It can't be this society and construct that we've set up. It has to go
Yes.
deeper than that. And it does go deeper than that, way deeper.
I think it does, because even when I grew up in the 70s, or even older, even in the 80s, anytime you would hear a conversation about, say, Bigfoot or something like that, the only time you would see it, now we had a paper here that was called the Cincinnati Enquirer. I don't know what they would call it anywhere else, but you would see it, and of course they talked about, you'd have like the little, what was this? It would be the magazine that had the sea monkeys, and it would just have all this fiction stuff, and it would just throw it on there like it was just like some kooky fiction thing that you're reading about and stuff. And I think now we have evolved consciously, and even through experiences that nobody's it doesn't feel like it's so taboo, like, oh, I'm not gonna mention this. I seen something in the air. People will laugh me out. My friends won't even talk to me if I keep talking about UFOs. It just, anything that we saw or experienced, you couldn't talk about it, or you were, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs kind of thing.
Right.
Now, so much of us, actually, we have a gentleman, Max Hawthorne. He has a show on our channel too, and he discusses like a lot of the quote unquote used to be mythological or legendary creatures. He discusses, I don't like to call them monsters because I'm a little bit different. I don't think they're necessarily monsters. I mean, it sounds crazy when I say my prayers at night and stuff. I include all the beings and all this and that because, hey, they might be really cool. Who knows? They might sit down and, have a forest lunch with me or something. I don't know, but it's just, I think it's just, it's so much out there now and so much knowledge of it that we can finally discuss this. And like you said, now it's not like this great fear. This is an actual discussion of who are they? What are they? They are our neighbors.
And everyone's, exactly, they are our neighbors. We are them, and they are us. And if you want to know more about it, then I think you have to start by going out into nature, because you have to find yourself again. You have to get connected to the planet again. And that's the best way to do it. And in doing that starts to open the doors. That starts to,
yep.
that starts to lift the veil, so to speak. So
I do think that does happen. I know my brother, he was hunting, and it was, well, I'm not supposed to say who that was. Anyway, a person I know. Kind of messed that one up already. A person I know happened to be hunting, and it was just really quiet, really super quiet. And he said the only way that he knows how to explain it is it was almost like somebody pulled open the sky or something. And he said it was just quiet, and I guess it was almost like he had something on his ears that was like, his ears or something. And I know, right? I'm not supposed to have said who that was, but anyway, I blew that one. Go back and mute that later. But anyway, he said like Bigfoot, Sasquatch. It looked like it just kind of like, actually, he said it just kind of like turned and looked at him, and then just stepped into this thing, and then shoop, it just went right back together. The air just, so I don't know if these are interdimensional or if they have the ability to hide something, if they are ancestors or if they're current neighbors. I think, it might even be all the above. I'm not really sure, but I really don't feel, Bonzan, she's in New Zealand. She said, I'm still listening, just getting a lot of rain and flooding. I am praying nonstop for you guys. There aren't words. They're not telling anything about what they're going through in New Zealand. I mean, they have dead bodies. They had the earthquake, they've had the cyclone, and then they let the dam loose, and it's came through, and that's flooded everything. It's an apocalypse there, the pictures she sent me. But I really don't feel, I'm on board with you about that. I don't think that these are beings to be afraid of or scared of, because if they do have these abilities, and if they're out there, which they're out there, there's too many people that seen them and everything else. If they had ill intentions, something would have happened to us. I don't really think there's a lot of ill intentions going on. I think they're waiting for us to evolve up to their level, to where we realize, oh, yes, they are our neighbors. The deer are our neighbors. Sasquatch is our neighbors. The fish are our neighbors. We share the planet. It's not like our planet. And if it is, it's like we're not doing a very good job at stewardship, to say the least.
So you hit the nail on the head with, as far as if we consciously grow, if we expand our consciousness through our heart, and our frequency, our energy will rise up, so to speak, then we will be in alignment with those that are in other densities, because that's what that is, energy. So right now, maybe they're up here and we're like this, and we don't see them too much, but once in a while, when we can align up our energies with them, we will get a glimpse of that. And it is an amazing feeling. I've had a lot of wonderful experiences. I've had a lot of, I've learned a lot about myself through them. So it's a personal journey, but All of this is actually a personal journey. It's
And where you live at, I would imagine, I mean, the forests there, I mean, like we said, they are so old. The roots, literally, of these trees. I cannot even begin to imagine how many miles and miles of roots these trees are. And I mean, scientists have proven that, you say if you cut down this one tree, these other trees have still kept this tree alive. And scientists have proven in the Amazon, trees do talk and do
oh
communicate with
yes,
each other. And I think
absolutely.
even with the forest people, or Sabe or a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever they, person wants to call it, Yeti or urine. I think that, I don't know, I think that they have either tuned into or they are a part of that energy that is in, like you said, the forest people. Somehow they're on that energy level. I don't know how to explain. It's kind of hard to explain it
No, it is
in.
hard to explain, and until until you experience it the way that you need to experience, then you'll find the words for it, or not. But you will definitely, as your um, friend said when he was hunting. um,
Oh, he's not hunted anymore, by the way.
that happens to a lot of hunters. um, that you'll feel this exchange of energy that just changes your whole being. And it is really amazing. I've been around a lot of people that have had the primal people, our Sasquatch people, in their world for a long, long time. And I've learned a lot through them, and then have had my own experiences knowing what they gave to me. And that helped me with my own journey with this. And it really is a personal journey. It's an amazing personal journey. So I would just say, if you want to open that door, you have to get out in the woods and you have to ask questions. And you have to just say, I want to know. Help me out here.
You know what? That's interesting that you say that like that, because I have noticed that. Does it seem to you that Kathy said we have all failed our planet thus far because of being selfish? Yes, yes. Greed has. Everybody says the money is the root of all evil, and I say no, it's the greed. The money. It could be tangerines. Is whoever wants the most tangerines. It could be anything. Now, when you had mentioned like the experiences and stuff like that, I have seemed to notice over the years that it seems like, and maybe I don't know if you have noticed it, or because you're more out in the field with some of these other areas. Does it seem like certain people seem to gravitate to have more experiences? Like maybe these beings understand and feel their energy level, and
I
maybe
think
that's why they're having
those,
more.
yeah, I do think that people that just naturally have a really strong connection with the earth, that they make that a part of their everyday, have the capability of having a very strong connection with this, because the door is already open. They're out there all the time. They're experiencing, they're on the journey as adventure, or they're out in forest, or they're camping, or yeah, I think a lot of people that just have that understanding of the planet, really, this is a big part, the next aspect of that connection. And sometimes I seem to have this connection with entities that will come my way that want to reclaim, like they just want to be seen. And that seems to be what I'm all about. But some people have a connection with Bigfoot, or some people have a connection with other things that go unseen, or the elongated heads, or the giants, or dragons, or anything. I mean, a lot of people are connected because that's where they're supposed to be connected. I
I
just
think you're right about that.
Yeah, I just have this connection of whatever comes my way on the journey. And if I reconstruct it, it starts to present the energy around it, and it will show itself, and it will give me, and I trust my epiphanies. I really trust those messages. And when they come in, I think about it, and I'm like, you know what? This is taking me down to the next, it's taking me down the next, I'm putting one foot in front of the other, and I'm going forward here. It's moving me forward. So that's been my journey. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But a lot of people do it differently and have totally different experiences. And I'm just like amazed at the different things that people, their experiences that they have. So
It does surprise me.
A higher
Now,
vibration
Dave,
with nature. Yes, exactly. They're
now,
connected vibrationally in a way that they're just really rooted, like I said, really rooted to
yeah,
the planet. I think some of us are more in the sky. Some of us are more in the sky, and some of us are very rooted to the planet, very um, that wild man, that wild woman essence. We have that, it's like we are rooted to that. And then some people have more of the technology of maybe being out more into the cosmos, so to speak. So
yeah, further
depends on
out.
who you are and what you resonate with. What is it that makes you you? You know? Yes, I'm a human
That's what
being.
actually, those questions are what, and I'm so blessed too that it was documented so well. But those questions are kind of what got me on my path, starting on genealogy and stuff way back when. Well, that and something that I did as I had a lot of experiences as a child that paranormal with family and stuff, and then something that I had done as a child. And after that, I realized that we either our bodies or our bodies with our minds or something that we're able to manipulate and move. And from that point on, I wanted to know why,
Yep.
and how did this happen, and just kept searching. And then of course, I did the typical thing that everybody does is then your life gets absorbed into the white picket fence suburban lifestyle,
Right.
and next thing I know, we're running a business, and we have the two children, and the pedigree dog, and you have the cars, and you have this certain lifestyle. And I think
And that's
what
here
happens,
too.
and that might be a part what happens, I think we're kept, and I think that's a lot of what's going on with this financial situation, but I think that we're kept so busy. I think it's a lot. It always, every time I think about it, it reminds me of when made in the Judeo-Hebraic text, according to their history, where he made them like make more bricks. Well, now you go out and get your own straw, and the reason why he done all this stuff in that particular narrative was if they're so busy over here having to make a living and make their bricks and earn their bread, then they're not going to be over here questioning who are these guys? Who is Amenhotep with this elongated skull? Who are these people? And I think that it might even be a lot of what goes on with us, with a lot of the divisions and various things that goes on today. I think a lot of the distraction is to keep us manipulated enough to where we're not asking the
Absolutely.
important questions.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think we're kind of getting back to those important questions. Now, I was going to ask Dave, can you pull up? She has some carvings, and they actually are a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. That,
I
and I
have
think
one right
it's.
here.
Oh, do you really?
Do have one.
Okay.
And these are actually.
Oh my
The
gosh,
camera here. I
that's
don't know if
way
you can-
bigger than I thought too.
Well, with my hand. Yeah, there you go. There's that one. These are actually, if you see on the left-hand side, or what I'm seeing is the black image of the Sasquatch. It starts as I created this as a 3D model in the computer, like you're creating an animation character, like a lot of our entertainment people do. So it's created with 3D software. And then I have it 3D printed. Those files can be 3D printed, just like you print out anything. These files can be 3D printed, and it prints the same way that I created.
My 10-year-old niece has a 3D printer, and I'm going to tell you what, she's that right there. We're opening up doors with these kids these days.
Absolutely. So after I 3D printed it, and then I enhanced it to give it the coloration to make it look really real. And there again, that was one of those final products that I did that I was just like, that looks like I am really, I just brought somebody back to life. That expression was just so real for me. Even me, the one who created it, I'm like, this is amazing. This is an amazing, someone just came home to me, so to speak.
It's like he has these, the only way I know how to explain it and stuff like that, it reminds me of a poem I wrote. But anyway, when you look at him, and you look into his eyes, it just makes you think of like when you're looking at your great grandma, or you're looking at somebody like he's just got all these years of wisdom on the other side of his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
It's
good,
just fascinating.
yeah.
Now, when you take, actually, what I might end up doing is ask you, how can people find your artwork, and how can, what sites do you have? Facebook sites, TikToks,
Well,
.coms, anything that you have where people can look up and discover your artwork for themselves?
sure. I have social media. So I have a Facebook account, and then I have Instagram. Those are the two kind of things I post at. And then I, of course, have a website that has just, it's loaded with visuals. And that is kind of a long site name, but it's my name, Marcia K. Moore, CMRstudio.com. And CMR is CIAMAR. It's just Pig Latin to Marcia is what it is. It's CMR.
Did you just say Pig Latin?
I did.
My mom, I ought to do it. My mom taught us Pig Latin. I didn't think anybody in the world knew what that was other than us.
So that's what that is.
Sometimes she'd go, ooh, yay, stupid. No, ooh, yay, stupid, a. How, ooh, yay, oopid stay.
There you go. Yeah.
She would give us a hard time.
So,
wow, I didn't know anybody else knew what Pig Latin was from.
So that's what it is. CMR. There you go.
I was going to ask him. He's already on. I was going to say, now, is there any way you could pull that up, Dave? He's already pulled it up.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Hey, good job.
That's my website. And then on social media, I will usually post something pretty much daily just to keep people interested in, something that I'm working on, or maybe something that was already created, but I'm always posting. So that's how you can find me. I have been on, other, like I've worked with Brian Forster on the History Channel. I've worked through ancient.
Actually, pull that up there,
aliens,
Dave. It's like a book.
See some things that have been created. Yeah, I've created many.
Yeah, that's Brian Forster's. Yep, that's his. And I'm telling you what, he is the preeminent. I mean, I would say there's not anyone anywhere that is as knowledgeable or as studied as, actually, he's studying things people aren't even studying anywhere else with the elongated skulls. And Marcia is his go-to and his reference. And as you see, I mean, I think he's written like 30-something, 28 or 30-something books on this subject. And her illustrations and her reconstructions are on his front cover of his books. And that's how much he respects and values her interpretations of the facts that she's finding and the channelings that she's going through. And I mean, this guy, he's not just some, wishy-washy 5-minute do a research and put something out there. He's dedicated a lifetime of true, sincere. I mean, he's the real deal.
He is the real deal.
He knows what he's doing.
He has been my go-to for the Paracas, the ancient Paracas, and elongated skulls throughout the world. And we have helped each other out immensely over the last decade with information and visualizations.
And I would think that without question, I would think that his looking at your work would have to be inspirational, because it's like, he's been looking at all these things, and then just like we were just looking at, I mean, I know this isn't something that he studies, but just like, I don't know if it is something he studies or not, but when we were just looking at that 3D sculpture that you did, I would think when he looks in these reconstructions that you do, just like when we could look at that and you see the eyes, it's like there's something there. I would think it would probably inspire him also.
Yeah, as much as Brian is on the trail of research, he is also has a really good balance with just a spirit that is there too. So that helps him immensely with the research that he does. He's very much a researcher, and he will tell you that, but he's a very good person, and he's on the trail of this. He's getting the information, and he's glad to give it to everybody. He wants everybody to know this information. He puts it out there. So you can find all of his books, I think, through Amazon. I think he has most of his work through Amazon. So yeah.
Yes, and I did actually, and I had seen your work several times on Ancient Aliens, and didn't even know I had seen your work.
Yeah.
And we have actually, hey, pull those up, Dave. We have pictures of you. I had him uploaded with Giorgio Tsoukalos. I spell my name every time. Tsoukalos.
Now you're kind of throwing me off, but it's Giorgio. Yeah, we'll just go by
Giorgio.
Yeah.
with Ancient Aliens. I don't know if he's even listening. Is he listening to us? Are you there, Dave? I don't think he is listening to us.
Yeah. Giorgio had me
I'm listening. I'm just trying to find the right photo.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Tsoukalos.
There he is.
Now, how did you come about to? I get they probably looked you up. How did you come about to? Because you've been on a few times of the Ancient Aliens,
well, I'm
also.
kind of the go-to for the elongated heads, obviously, because nobody reconstructs those. And then they wanted me to reconstruct up in Alberta. There is a aerial view of what appears to be the Badlands Guardian, is what it's called. And it appears as an aerial view to be very significant as an indigenous looking character, or, I mean, you could interpret it in many different ways. But if you go to the episode of Badlands Guardian, you will see that reconstruction and that episode with Giorgio.
Now I will have to go and watch that one.
Yeah,
I've not seen that. I probably have seen it, but I didn't realize what I was looking at.
Yeah, and then I had one with Brian many, many years ago with the elongated skulls, and I, to be honest with you, I couldn't even tell you what the name of that was. Boy, I'm not real sure. I'd have to look that up, but I'm sure you could Google it and find something on that level too. So.
Now, do you feel, and it sounds to me like you're saying, do you feel as you have been, I guess, going from continent to continent and studying these beings, do you feel like we're all some sort of like related?
You kind of cut out there a little bit, but I think your question was, are these yeah, it just kind of froze a little bit. Are the elongated heads all related? Is that what you're saying? Or what was your question again? I'm sorry, it kind of broke up.
Yeah. Does it seem like there's some sort of a relative? Yeah, does it? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, actually, it is acting a little bit silly. It's really windy here, though. Does it seem to you? I know, harp. I'm not going to say it.
We're getting the last of the snow stuff, I think, probably. That's why.
Now, does it seem to you like you've like it has been one great global civilization, or does it seem to you like you've been able to connect that some of these, that they're all related in one way or another? I don't mean as far as DNA wise or family wise, although they may be, but does it seem like,
I think that
it's not just a
huge population that has been emulating a smaller population, and it has taken place all over the globe because of maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, these ancient architects made the rounds, and they were seen, and they were showing us or guiding new ways of developing architecture on this planet. I'm not gonna, I don't even know how to really describe that, other than there's people out there that kind of have more of a knowing about this than I do. But I would say that there was a certain amount of people that had these elongated heads. They probably weren't from this planet. This is a pretty big universe. They were from, a lot of people think they're from the Dog Star, which is the Sirius constellation.
I've heard that.
So then, so if that is the case, then they were showing us, the master builders were showing us how to create on this planet. And they were trekking all over the globe, and people were seeing them and taking on this head shape. They were emulating this power, this strength, this image maybe of royalty even that became a part of the royal lineage, so to speak. So it existed in the way that you perceive it. And if you perceive it as being from the cosmos, then I would say it has been, it's directed that way completely, because the majority of those that have emulated that head shape, which is a huge population, nothing compared to the ones that were here. If 4%, if it seems like the ancient Paracas, there was only 4% of the skulls that appear natural and the rest are emulating, then okay, they saw something and they wanted to imitate it. And why did they want to imitate that? They wanted the powers that these people had. They wanted to expand
And
their consciousness.
yeah, and with you saying that, that reminded me, I can't even think of the name of the tribe. It's not the Zuni, but anyway, it might, I don't know. They're like, there's a tribe in Africa, and they come out and they do like their annual, dances and celebrations and stuff, and they wear the full-on costumes and different stuff, and they actually have, within their lore, and the scientists are still trying, they're waiting for a couple more things, but a few things they have absolutely proven later on that they found out, and I think it was, like you said, it wasn't Sirius, but anyway, they have proven that the constellations, that this tribe out in Africa that doesn't have any of this technology, that, it's proven that their legends and their lore, oral history is what I call it. It's proven spot on. Like, how would they know where these different astronomical sites are and these stars are, these alignments, especially ones that haven't even been, visible to them? And it turns out that with now modern machinery and modern telescopes and everything, we're able to see these and prove that, yeah, this was right. This is spot on. And there's so much archaeoastronomy with a lot of these different sites. Like Ross Hamilton, he's done immense studies on the like the geo or the archaeoastronomy alignments of, say, Fort Ancient out here by me.
Right. I know Ross, yeah.
And different areas, and even with the Great Serpent Mound. Yeah, with those, and then right, like in Paracas, where the skulls are that you've done. If I remember right, isn't the Nazca Lines kind of close to that area, maybe?
All of that is very close, yeah. And
it is.
What I was going to say is, the 4% that were natural head shapes, and those that were emulating, if we want to talk about like the Inca, a lot of the Inca emulated that head shape, and they had to have I think it's called trepanation. They had to have surgery, brain surgery, because I think there was so much pressure that was built on so many levels that it wasn't a natural head shape. So they had to have brain surgery in order to kind of release that pressure. And you'll see a lot of that down there, a lot of it. So there again, we weren't supposed to emulate that head shape. We were supposed to expand through the heart, not the head. But we were emulating, but we are a species that loves to emulate. So that's what we were doing.
I think that's wise how you said that, actually.
Well, that came to me through the elongated head. As I'm creating them, I will get these epiphanies, and maybe you can just say, oh yeah, well, that's just you talking. But no, it's not. I don't believe it is. When I am channeling and in tune with sculpting, these things will be presented to me, and it'll blow my mind. Sometimes I'll be like, oh my gosh, well, of course. We're perfectly human the way we are. Why would we want to reshape our heads? And now more than ever, through the last 2 years, going through everything that we've gone through, just as, kind of society and everything, it's like people are waking up. People are starting to understand that this is the big brain spot right here. This is where it's at. These two in combination, phenomenal. But if you don't open this up,
that's true
capacity, you're not going to get all this information. We are.
Kathy said that made so much sense.
We are powerful, and we just give our power away constantly. So once we recognize how much power we have, we are going to open these doors and remember.
I think so.
Yeah.
I absolutely, I absolutely positively agree. We have immense powers that we can affect the material and the matter around us. I know that for a fact.
Absolutely.
Now this is a great question. They asked, as reclusive as Sasquatch is, do you believe it is, or they are indigenous, or could be extraterrestrial? Or have you channeled or thought about
I
that.
think it's both.
That's interesting. I thought that.
I think it's both. I have had, well, I can't even begin to answer that question other than I think it's both. I really do. And I also think what you perceive, your own perspective in just asking the question opens the door to the thought of it. So whoever just asked that question, it means that that's a direction for them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Anything that comes through you is something that is telling you to follow that direction. So again, what you perceive is what you receive.
I do agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I think on a whole, I don't know what's caused it, but I really do think, and well, I think part of it, I do understand, with us getting back to embracing basics, like the vibration of a crystal or a rock, that you can't get, I tried to explain it in, with different religion stuff, and I've had a lot of religious upbringing and stuff. It's kind of hard to explain to somebody something, and it shouldn't be, as basic as that came out of the earth that you live on, and it is part of the core existence of your existence of the planet that you live on. So it has much more value than what we give it. And I'm thinking that with I don't know, some people want to call it woke, which I think that word's been hijacked. As soon as people started talking about being, awakened to chakra and everything else, there comes the distractions again by using that wordage. And I think there's reasons this stuff happens,
Sure.
rewrite the narrative. But I think with all of us, you got so many people that now are meditating. Nobody would have thought about that, back in the 70s or 80s, meditating. Oh, okay, well, that's what Bruce Lee does, or that's what the guy, on the TV show, does, for Kung Fu or whatever. People didn't think of, the suburban housewife mom is going to go over here and she's going to meditate. It just wasn't something, that happened, or in the 60s or 50s where they went and had a martini. They didn't, go meditate.
It existed. I think it was out there actually a lot. It's just that we felt very alone in it. And you did it behind a closed door. If I were to meditate, or if I thought a certain way, I was like, well, let's not tell the masses about this. You're doing it your way, but you don't have to tell people. But now I'm realizing, now that people are talking more and more, they had the same feeling. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell anybody. So it's like, okay, so everybody was actually doing these things, but they didn't want to tell anybody. So now that whole, we are just really, as a collective, starting to understand this. We're like, this is how it works. Get to know yourself. And it's amazing how the door just starts to open and open. So that's how it's worked for me.
Well, I think it's people like you, and I really appreciate that, and that have went out there and have, just like being on this podcast, that have opened up the door for those of us to just openly have this conversation. Your friend comes over and you guys sit down, you have a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and then you can actually sit there and have a conversation about, seeing a Bigfoot, seeing a Sasquatch, talking about, wow, what do you think about these elongated skulls? It's conversation. I have no idea why this is going off. It's silent. But we can actually sit and have these conversations because, not only have you opened up that conversation, you've done it on a global level, and you've done it in such a way that it's not like some mythological, like we're sitting around, and don't get me wrong, I love Larry Elmore, but it's not like we're sitting around talking about the mythological art of Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Right.
You've brought this on a level that it's more like, wow, check this out. This seems to be, legitimate. Look at how she's done this, or just like how you did the elongated skulls with the elongated neck, and you went through, like you're saying, the architecture of the frame of the body. And I really appreciate the way you've brought that, something that we can really look at, we can really study. We're still the nerds. Although I'm still a nerd, but that we can actually question opened up a lot of doors for a lot of us.
Yeah. See, that's where in learning through what I'm reconstructing, bring back the balance. So bring back the balance of, you know, just what you said. You can't go from opening the door to this out into the cosmos. You have to take this every step of the way and open the door slowly so people can understand the possibilities. And that then takes it to where we are right now, where people are really opening the door and they're really understanding this more and more and more. So I'm pretty happy about that, and I'm very excited that you wanted to cover this topic with me, because it's not like I'm never going to give up on this, but I'm always like,
No.
where do you go with this, Marcia? Because you're doing this through your own journey, but how are you going to bring more and more people along and have them really understand this? And I guess through just having this podcast with you, that really helps me too. So it'll help me continue the work that I need to do.
Yeah, I sincerely think that we're going to keep migrating to you.
Well, we'll go back and forth. That's for sure. I love everybody. Everybody's doing the best they can and they're doing the work. So that's great.
She said, Bigfoot doesn't just say, I'm here. Yeah, not usually. I don't know. I don't know. And then again, I have heard some things in Kentucky, so I think they might yell, I'm here. I really appreciate you spending your time and being here with us. And I appreciate the effort and the passion and the convictions that you do with your artwork and that you've shared with the world. I mean, what you've given to us, the future generations, my descendants, everybody's descendants. And hopefully I'll have you back on again too. That way we can kind of keep up with all the different aspects of your artwork and with the evolving knowledge that makes us look back and go, wow, she was right on with that one.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I really appreciate that. And like I said, I'm very honored. Thank you for honoring the work that I do. Thank your viewers. I thank them so much for tuning in, and we're all sending lots of prayers out to New Zealand and hope that they can get that kind of relaxed a little bit over there. I'm sorry that that's happening.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful place too.
Yeah, very, very beautiful. We're all here together.
Well, I thank you very much. And I want to tell all the viewers also thank you for tuning in. And I hope everybody has a blessed and a beautiful evening. And everybody stay out safe out there. Love you, Bonzam. Stay safe. Well, love all of yous, actually. And keep yourself tuned in and don't dismiss something just because it seems like it's a taboo subject or this or that. Keep yourself tuned in to the energies that are out there and the true awareness of existence that's starting to unfold to us, the questions. And if you do feel something, like she said before, if you feel something that gives you a question, till we see you next week, follow up on that question and just grow yourself. Just keep growing yourself.
Yeah.
And I thank you all for tuning in, and everybody have a blessed, and what is our shaman running after Ricky? Okay, coming out. Okay, I was like, what are they saying here? And all you guys have a very blessed week. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.